Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back to some more Zero Hour and welcome to my all units tier list for the whole game, all factions. So it's probably one of my most requested videos in comments and stuff. I see people asking for this all the time, and it's probably one of the videos I've been putting off for the longest time because it's not as simple as people may think. For example, there's not going to be one unit here that just outright beats everything. I know I'm going to, and probably people expect this, is probably put Humvee up there in the S tier, which I very may well do. But like a Humvee, for example, by itself, without any upgrades or whatever, without any missile defenders inside of it, is easily going to die to an Emperor tank, for example. But Emperor tank, you probably would not put in S tier. So it's not quite as simple. But if you have a V fully loaded with all the upgrades, search and destroy, loaded with missile defenders, then of course then you would put it against an Emperor tank. But does the Emperor tank have a Gatling on top of it? Is it supported by ECMs? It's more complex than just this unit beats this one, beats this one, beats this one. But I'm going to try my best anyway because people requested it so many times. So I've basically gone on a website called timemaker.com. Someone already kind of had this. I didn't agree with their rankings whatsoever. They had like bulldozers in the double S tier. I've deleted one of their tiers, which was their bottom one. I've called the D tier auxiliary, which I'll come on to in a second, and I've deleted their SS tier. You don't need an SS tier. You don't need so many tiers. I've got 4 tiers, S being the best, A, B, C, and we're going to try our best. But it's very, very subjective, and it's very, very situational. For example, an Alpha Aurora parked on an airfield is going to get killed by a Rebel ambush right next to it. But an Alpha Aurora in the air, going across the map to kill one Rebel, will kill the Rebel. So it's very like, do you see, it's like a sledgehammer is very good for a certain job, and a screwdriver is very good for a certain job. You don't use a sledgehammer to unscrew a cabinet on the wall for it, just for a random example. But we're going to try our best. Right, auxiliary here. These are the things that are very important to the game, but they outright can't attack by themselves and can't do very much. For example, a pilot. A Vet 3 pilot is super useful if you put him inside a nuke overlord, which is there. It can make the Overlord insanely strong, probably the outright most strong tank in the entire game. I think with the Subliminal Meshing, I think it even beats an Emperor with Vet 3. But a pilot by itself can't do anything. It can't kill anything. It can't literally do anything apart from take an unoccupied vehicle, or it can make a unit Vet 3 or Vet 1 or Vet 2. So pilot's useful, but that's why I'm putting in there. Likewise, a radar van cannot it's just a support unit. Basically it can run over some stuff, but it's more a support unit, so I don't need to explain that any further. A bulldozer is essential to win the game, but you can't win a game just with a bulldozer. With no money, no units, you're not going to win with just a bulldozer. And same for the USA dozer, and then also same for the GLA worker. Now GLA worker, you probably, maybe you could put it a little bit up because it can build demo traps, and you can also make loads of them and spread out all over the map and build tunnels, so they're probably a bit more powerful than the dozers. But the dozers in a one-on-one will just crush the worker. So again, I'm going to put it in auxiliary, and alongside the worker I am also going to put a supply truck, because you can't build any of this stuff, well, apart from this starting 10k. You can't continue a battle without a supply truck, but a supply truck also by itself can't do a lot, so it's going to go in auxiliary. I'm also going to put a Chinook there in auxiliary because it collects supplies. But a Chinook can also do a drop. It can drop a flamer in the enemy base. If you've got 2 armies, it can drop fully loaded Vs. It can drop missile defenders from the start. It can drop a dozer. So Chinook is probably a bit more powerful than a supply truck because it's so good and it's so fast, and it provides a scout as well. Then I think that's it for all the auxiliary ones. ECMs by themselves will be completely useless, but supported by other units can be really powerful. But a sentry drone, probably one of the most useless. C we're going to use as like the useless category. We are going to put it in C, because when do you ever see that in any competitive normal game? I haven't seen one. The last one I saw was on Falmon's The Fallen. I think Lift Truck made one by accident against Marikar or something. I don't think he intended to build it, and the only time I build him is in that ghost mode we're playing where you're trying to detect stealth. With the machine gun upgrade, they can detect stealth, but USA can detect so much stealth anyway, using the drone and using the satellite scan and using the strategy center. You don't need that as well. Plus, every unit you build as USA can build a drone on top of it, which can detect stealth anyway. So the USA is overpowered in terms of detecting stealth anyway. So in terms of other useless units, if we're talking vanilla USA and when you require a general's promotion to buy the stealth fighter, I would say that pretty much never gets made in competitive mode and is not very useful at all. Of course, there are certain situations where you can make it happen, but I'm trying to think here, how often do you see a USA vanilla stealth fighter in a competitive match? That's what we're going to base most of this on, and pretty much never. So I'm going to also class that in the useless category. However, if that was Air Force, comes to the point defense lasers, you're going to have an airfield probably anyway. It doesn't require a general's promotion. Then I think there's a case of putting it in B or A, especially like on Twilight Flame, for example. Use one stealth fighter to pop open a tunnel, and then the King Raptors come in and wipe out a whole tunnel. Very, very useful. But even then, though, it's quite niche. You don't see it that often. It's probably a bit underused. In fact, you know what? We're going to base most things here as if they're the most powerful ones. So we'll base that on if it's the Air Force. So we'll put it in a B category because it is useful. We're going to class things in the S category as I'm going to try to do it like if you can spam just one unit, can you win the game with just that one unit? So, for example, a Humvee. You can spam Humvees with the tow upgrade from multiple war factories, and you can spam and just take over the map and just win with the Hellfires and drones and whatever else you want to have on it. With Humvees, you can also load them up, obviously, with missile defenders. That's why this list is pretty situational, because is the V loaded with missile defenders? Does it have search and destroy? But we're going to take everything into account. You can just spam the one unit by itself and win games, primarily like against the China Vanilla, for example, when he doesn't open double war factory. If you open double war factory as the USA and spam empty Tovies, you pretty much just win the game most of the time. But also taking into account the fully loaded Vs with missile defenders, the fact that you can do a no eco, which is 2 full Vs, and an ambulance right from the start, straight across the map. You can win games just with a V. So I think everybody knows Humvees are the most powerful unit, just all round, whether spammed or microed individually, or yeah, whatever. Vs are just insane. Whilst we're on the topic, for GLA, can you spam just quads and win the game? Yes, you can. Quads and tunnels, they're very powerful. Do you see them every pro game? Yes, you do. You see Vs, and you will see quad cannons in every pro game. If you are one of the Chinas that can make a Gatling, can you spam them and just win the game? And do you need them pretty much every game? The answer is yes. So, I mean, I'm going to put them in the S tier just because of how common they are. It's not to say that the GAT in a 1v1 will beat a V, because especially with Search and Destroy, it will not. But we're also basing this on being the strongest one as well. So let's pretend this is a GAT one. A tank one. It has the veterancy. It's only costing $700. But it's not to say that in a 1v1 it will beat a fully loaded V. That's not the case. But what I'm saying here is that every game you are China where you can make a GAT, you're probably going to be making a GAT in order to win the game. So this is where the list becomes a bit strange. If we're talking 1v1 against the fully loaded V, then okay, I'll probably go way down here, because especially without ECMs, it's just going to get absolutely spanked. But with ECMs, the GATs become then probably better than the Vs, especially when you corner them against the side of the map. I'm going to put then ECM. I'm going to put probably most things in this A category, because everything in the A category is going to be good and going to be required to win games, but not something that you can just spam alone and just win a game. Those three things you can just spam and win a game alone. So ECM combined with the GAT is really powerful. You probably will be making an ECM most games when you're able to in 0 hour. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to put Scorpions there as well, because you probably won't ever just spam Scorpions. It'll probably be along with technicals and stuff as well. But Scorpions are very good. Usually if you can make them and they're required, you're probably going to be making them. Crusaders very good as well. So probably put that in the same category, especially if you're against the tank, where there's going to be mainly GATs and ECMs. Crusaders are very, very powerful against that. Battle Busters, I will probably put there as well. I think this list here is going to be very full. All of the heroes are all good. The Super Lotus is even more powerful, but can you just spam her and win the game? No, so I'm just going to put her there, but we know Super Lotus is better than the regular Lotus. Her disabling range is crazy, and she starts as a Vet 1. Comanches, you can just spam them and win the game. We're going to pretend they're the Air Force ones. Of course, if we're talking like USA, laser, super weapon, they're more expensive, and they're not as good. They probably would be more Would they be in that category? Maybe. Probably would be in the B category. King Raptors, can you just spam them and win games? Well, in TFR games, you can actually. And maybe in certain other matchups, you can. It's the best air unit all round, so I'm going to put it in S tier. But it's not to say that a King Raptor will beat a Jean Monkel, because it's you see, it's just the list is a bit strange, isn't it? But it's the best air unit all round. Two of them can pretty much one shot pretty much everything in 0 hour. We're going to pretend the Overlords are nuke Overlords. And if they're supported by ECMs, they're a very, very deadly army. We're going to probably put that there. Because can you just spam that and win a game? No, you're going to have to spam other things before that. But it's of course still very powerful. So we're going to put it in A. Like I said before, A is going to be pretty full here, I think. Laser tanks, I'm pretty much going to class them. Same as like Crusaders, but they're more powerful, especially when they're backed up by a pilot. These are always going to be supported by an ambulance. So yeah, those two together, obviously really, really powerful. Combat Chinook, can you just spam that and win the game? You can actually. It's one of the lamest, or one of the most considered lamest rushes in 0 hour. And even if you're kind of mid-game, like USA versus GLA, and you just mix in a Combat Chinook, it suddenly just ends the game, and it's so, so powerful. So actually, I'm going to put that in S tier. Alpha Auroras, can you just spam that and win the game? You're probably going to want to make other stuff up to that point. So, of course, they're very, very powerful. I'm going to put it in the A category. Is there a case of putting it in S? But we have to stick by my rule. Can you just spam it and win the game? It takes a long time to get to alphas. So we're taking that into account. So I'm going to put it in the A category. But we know one alpha can just one-shot basically anything that's on the ground. 4 King Raptors landed on the airfield. Alpha comes in, wipes it out. All these Vs together. Alpha comes in, wipes the whole army out. So, I mean, you can put that in A or S. It depends how you're doing this list. Vanilla Raptors, I'm going to put that in the same category as B, because this is the useless list. The Sentry Drone, which is, by the way, Vanilla Hijackers would go there, but we're going to base these on Stealth Hijackers. Like, Vanilla Hijackers require a General's Point. They're not stealthed whilst moving, so you pretty much never, ever see them. I can't even remember the last time I saw one on a pro game. Maybe it's never. So you would have to say that's in the useless list. In fact, let's just call this list useless. So that's if it is the vanilla hijacker, but we're going to pretend it's the stealth hijacker, in which case it is useful in certain situations. So I'm going to put it actually in A, because it's a very good unit. Flamers are in A, they're a good unit, but you can't just spam them by themselves to win a game. Maybe against certain GLAs if the match is pretty quick. Paladins do require a General's Point, but you're seeing that used in 1v1s lately where it gets dropped and kills a load of workers. They're not as useless as like a stealth fighter, so we have to put it in A. Marauder, we're going to put it in A, although it does require a General's Point. It can be strong. These two units do take a while to build, so this is where actually maybe we could do with an extra tier. Maybe we could. But we're going to keep it like this for now. Okay, Outpost, Emperor. Emperors are good, so we're going to put that also in A. They're cheaper than the Overlords. It has a speaker tower naturally on top. It's very, very slow, though. That's the problem. You don't always see them. And they also don't get the Horde bonus or the Battlemaster upgrade. You know, the shot upgrade. I forget what it's called. The autoloader upgrade that tank has, because obviously that's a tank unit. But they are very, very strong in a head-on engagement. You pretty much never want to mess with that in a head-on engagement. Tomahawks are good, but you can't just spam them and win the game outright. Microwave tank is useful for shutting down sneak attacks, and it is useful for clearing out enemy bunkers. You do see it used sometimes, but not all the time. So I'm gonna probably put it in that one. But if we had another tier in between A and B, we could probably put it in like an extra tier, because it's not as common as like a flamer, for example. You see a flamer used all the time. It depends with this tier list, like if you're doing it in order of strength or in order of commonality at how much are they used. New cannons, Scud launchers, all just solid units, but they can't just win games by themselves. It's like rock, paper, scissors, as I keep explaining. A Vanilla Raptor is great against a supply truck, but a Vanilla Raptor's bad against pretty much everything, everything on the list. Okay, so technicals. Can you just spam technicals and tunnels and win the game? Yes, you can. You're going to be making technicals every single game as GLA. You're going to be doing some kind of a TNT, whether it's late game or early game. You can just spam technicals and counter Vs. You can just spam technicals and sometimes just rush a GLA and even counter quads. They can get scrapped up and just win games. So I'm going to put technicals there. But again, that's not to say a technical can beat a combat Chinook in a 1v1. And the combat Chinook, by the way, has to be loaded with missile defenders, which is down here, which I'm actually going to put missile defenders. Can you just spam that and win a game? Well, you can in USA Mirrors. I suppose supported by Rangers, but I'm going to put missile defenders here along with RPGs. But the missile defender for USA is better because it can do the laser lock. I'm going to put tank hunters here as well because these are all good units. But a tank hunter is great against a Marauder, but a Marauder, there's Vet 3 without a pilot, a Vet 3 and got a double end, then it actually that becomes the strongest tank. I think it even beats the Nuke Overlord I told you about before. Okay, so next unit we are gonna put in is a MiG. So yeah, well this encompasses if it's a nuke MiG or whether it's napalm MiGs. They're pretty much you can't spam them and just win the game, but they are a very, very good support unit. Most of the time you're going to be making MiGs, so we are gonna put them here. Same with TNTs. Same with buggies. Very, very strong long-range unit. This is just all the solid units, basically. And this is just all the OP stuff at the top. Okay, so hackers. Well, I mean, as you get to late game, especially if you like infantry, you're probably going to be wanting to make some hackers. If you're talking tank hackers, then I would put them in the probably useless or B category, but we're going to pretend like they're infantry hackers or even China vanilla hackers. So I would put them in A. They are useful. Most of the time, probably you want to tend to not make them. You want to try and win the game as China's generally before that stage. But if you're infantry, you definitely can be making them. If you tank, never make them. And the ones in between, sometimes you can make them. We're going to put them in A because they're not as like unuseful as these. They're not useless like this. They're not actually they are auxiliary. They're auxiliary, so that's gonna go in auxiliary. Oh, it can disable stuff though. It can disable stuff, so yeah, we'll put it in auxiliary. Okay, well, I mean, Red Guards and Rangers, they're useless by themselves. They're not going to win a game even against the Dozer. But the thing is, they capture oils, which are essential to winning games, so they're going to be made pretty much every single game. Same with Rebels. Tox Rebels, I think it goes without saying, are the strongest out of all of those. Minigunners we're going to put there as well. You need all of those to capture oils, and without winning oils, especially on big oil maps like Oil Rampage or Liquid Gold, then you're not going to be winning the game. So yeah, you definitely need all of these. This is just all the core stuff in 0 Hour that you're going to be making. This is just all the OP stuff, and then down here is the auxiliary or useless stuff. Okay, so Toxin Tractor. Well, again, it's useful in certain situations. If you need to flush out a building and you're not Tox, you're probably going to need to make a Toxin Tractor. So they're useful in certain situations. You can't spam it and outright win the game. So I'm going to put it in A. Helix is... We're going to pretend this is the infantry Helix. So we're actually going to put that in the OP one, which is the S tier. But if we're talking China Vanilla Helixes, then it will probably go in the A category. Nuke Helix is an A category. Tank Helix is A category, or maybe even like an A- category if one existed, because the tank helixes take 5 seconds longer to build and they're more expensive, and the tank hunters, I don't know if they take longer to build actually. I think they take longer to build and they're the most expensive in the game. So a tank helix would be like an A-. Generally you want to steer away from those. You can make them sometimes, but we're going to pretend this is the infantry helix, and that will go in the S tier, because you can just make one helix and often win games, as I used to in Quick Match all those years ago. Pathfinder, a solid unit, but can't win a game by itself. Pretty much the best anti-infantry thing you can have. Just wipes out infantry. In a future patch, there's talk about making the price more expensive from $600 to like $900 and making the build time longer. Maybe it should even be more expensive than that, because it pretty much outright wrecks infantry general when you get to that later stage of the game. Battlemaster. Okay, if that was a China Vanilla Battlemaster, then you probably put it here. Except when you're against tank. If you're against tank, then it would be here. But overall in the game, when do you ever see it apart from against the tank? Not very often. So I am probably going to whack it here because it's very situational. Only ever making it against a tank. So yeah, I'm going to put it there. And a Vanilla Raptor, by the way, there are certain situations where you can make one. For example, super weapon against infantry. If you want to counter a Helix, you make Vanilla Raptors. I think you need 2 to kill it, or maybe even 3. I think 2 might leave it really weak. But we can one-shot an outpost, but it's very situational. This is a very situational category, so that's why I'm going to put it there. Saboteur can't do anything by itself. I'm going to put it in the auxiliary because it can reset support powers, and it can, if it goes in the CC, it can steal cash, and it can reset a super weapon timer. It can't win a game by itself. It can't attack or do anything like that, but it's very, very useful. It's not in the useless category. Outpost, we're going to put it in this category. Although, if it was the infantry one, which I suppose what we're basing this on, you can put it here, but it's probably not as OP as like V-Spam, for example, MTV Spam. So, yeah, Outpost here for any China, basically, or especially China infantry is definitely a solid A. If it's the China infantry one, maybe there's a case to put it one above because it's like having a battle bus right from the beginning, although it's got much weaker HP. China troop crawler is situational, but they are useful for reclaiming overlords that have been sniped or for Russian fire bases or EMPs. So pretty much it's not useless and it's not very situational. You see it quite a lot of games. Okay, bomb truck is probably quite situational, so I'm actually going to put that in the B category. Yes, we do see it, the pros using it on Twilight Flame to take out oils, and certain 1v1 games, sometimes you see it. We saw an epic bomb truck drop from America once on Oil Rampage, but these are examples where you have to really think about it. Like, when's the last time I saw one? Oh, it was probably like a month ago or 2 months ago. So they're not useless, and they're not like OP or made every single game, which is pretty much what A category is, but they are situational and still useful in some situations, which I suppose is similar to a China Vanilla Battlemaster. Inferno is very strong for whichever armies can make them, especially as we saw just recently in a replay. Infantry, when it's making fully loaded outposts with ECMs backed up by Infernos, it's a very, very deadly force. Avengers pretty much goes without saying. Could you say that's an auxiliary unit, actually? Well, no, it does attack, doesn't it? It attacks air units, and it's very, 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 very strong at killing air units and very good at defending yourself against, like, MiGs, for example. And the blue laser, by the way, increases the fire rate of your surrounding nearby allied units. So, for example, if I'm firing the blue laser on it at, like, an enemy Patriot, the units nearby will attack it faster. I can't remember off the top of my head what the rate is. Like 15 or 25%, something like that. But that's what the blue laser does. Combat cycle is very useful, especially as GLA for grabbing very far away oils very, very quick. It's one of the fastest ground units, maybe the fastest ground unit. You can go all the way across the map, unload the rebel, if you're not demo, that is, and then you can capture the oil. And if you're demo and it's got a TNT on it, you can wreck entire armies. So it definitely would be in the A category, but you can't win games outright just by spamming it alone in the top category. Auroras, so we're going to pretend that's the Air Force Aurora, but we're also going to take into account the fact that USA, well, the other USAs can make them as well. It's not an alpha. Alpha is definitely the king of the Auroras. It's being used more and more by, like, Marikov, for example. He is making him useful, generally though, because he's so much better than the opposition that he's playing. He's even making it work against experts, but you don't see him all that often. It's not as common as everything else you're seeing there. So there probably could be a case for putting it there. Quite situational. You don't see them most games. This is units that you see in most games in order to get a win. And Auroras, you can probably get by most of Zero without making Auroras. So actually, I'm going to put it there. But if you want to put it in A or B by my rules, that's totally fine. Okay, last one is Angry Mob. They're not as situational as B. You do see them pretty much every long GLA mirror game. You can see them against infantry and just win games, get the AK-47 upgrade, attack, move into the enemy base. And yeah, they're very, very strong at $800, and they can dish out entire masses of damage and wreck bases very, very quick. So I think there'll be probably some comments in here saying, oh, Dummy, you've cheated. You've just whacked everything in A. And yeah, I kind of have, but like I said before, it's kind of rock, paper, scissors. Like a buggy steps on a TNT, the buggy's useless. But a buggy against a V, the buggy's well microed and the V's empty, the buggy kind of wins. So it's a very, very situational and very, very subjective, let's say. Some people might complain that I put a microwave there. Maybe microwave actually can go in the situational box. But yeah, overall, at least I've given you comments on every single one. So if you are unsure like how powerful a Marauder is or a Paladin, hopefully I've given you some comments now. Paladin is useful. It takes a long time to build. It costs 1100, does require a general's point, but you see more and more pros now build it from the very beginning, drop it on an enemy GLA worker line, and so, well, more often than not, actually get the win if it's executed well. And likewise, Marauder is used sometimes as well, but Marauder might be more situational as well. Maybe we could put Marauder down here because it just does require a general's point. But yeah, no matter what angle you look at it or how many categories you have it here, probably every single different person in the world or all the different pros in the world will probably score this slightly differently. It just depends. And like I say, I've been putting it off for a while, but it's so hard to do because it's so situational. But I've tried to stick by the rule. If you can just spam that one unit, can you win the game? And Vs, yes you can. Quads you can. Gats, often you can. Later on you might have to make some ECMs if the game proceeds. Against the USA I'm talking about, of course, against GLA you're going to need other stuff like Flamers, Outposts, Battle Masters. And we're basing this on being the tank Gat as well, by the way. Comanches, we're going to pretend they're the Air Force ones. Yes, you can. King Raptors, yes, you can. TF Air games. Any DEFCON 3v3 game and you got air in the middle. But you can also just use them in 1v1s like against infantry, for example. King Raptors wreck them. Combat Chinooks. Technicals you're going to be making every single game, but you can just spam them to counter Vs and still win. Of course, we're taking into account that GLA isn't naturally just going to make tunnels. And Infantry Helix, we're going to base that on is, yeah, you can just make one of those. But of course, you have to have tank hunters inside of it. So are you classing it as empty? Or are you classing it with tank hunters? But we're going for the maximum. It's loaded with tank hunters. It's got the bunker upgrade. Yeah, so that's my tier list. If there's serious complaints about this, not happy that I put everything in A, maybe I'll remake it in the future, or maybe not, actually. GG, well played. Let me know your thought down below. Maybe link your tier list if you've got a different tier list, or if there's any units missing from this list. I haven't even checked, by the way. Then let us know your comments down below, and I'll check out yours as well. So maybe you can share it in the Discord channel, actually, because I don't know if you can post links in the comments. I don't know if YouTube blocks it, but you could post your version. I'll share this link, and you can post your version or a screenshot of it in my Discord. So yeah, GG, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.